Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Have a roll call, please.
Jason Tron,
Here.
Julie Simpson, Jeff Bard, Robin Cleek, here, Wes Poland here, Matt Jacobs, Sonali Patel.
Here. 4 present, 3 absent. Anybody from the public wishes to comment?
Anyone?
Anyone? Going once, twice, gone? So today, it's a special meeting for the going over the results of the educational facilities master plan. So today we are going to start with acknowledging the comments that we received from the EFMP survey. The meeting that we had on the 25th of September, we presented the data slides from the multiple choice questions. We'll again touch on them briefly. To start answering these comments, we have to present some of the EFMP data slides again. Explaining those slides will help us address the comments. And before we start, I'd like to thank those who took the time to take the survey. If your question or concern isn't answered, please reach out to us. We will make every effort to answer you or get the information for you. We can meet you at the district office to go over the data in person if you would prefer. I'd like to emphasize that this is a presentation of data and facts. We will hopefully successfully convey to you the reasoning behind some of the decisions that were made that were confusing and do away with some of the misinformation that is floating around still. We are not going to debate the pros and cons of each option or each comment. We will take your comments and opinions into consideration when we start taking the next step, which will hopefully be starting from the next board meeting. We will start having the EFMP discussions again to see what do we want to do in the future for for the needs of our district, which we still have. The EFMP is a facilities master plan. It not only addresses our immediate space needs due to high enrollment, but also the future needs of all our students. Anybody else would like to add anything?
Doing great so far. Thank you for putting this all together.
Yes.
So we placed the referendum question on April 4th, 2017 ballot. It asked for the permission from the community to issue bonds for $42 million. These bonds would have been used for improvements and renovations of current buildings and also construction of the additional spaces needed based on each facility. This process had started in January 2016 with sending out an RFQ for an architect. This plan was conceived by the core team, which consisted of teachers, parents, community members, administrators, and the architects. This is a district-wide solution. It does not pertain to just one building or one situation. So, to begin with, this slide kind of gives you all a history of our district buildings. These buildings were all constructed as grade centers and hence are close to each other and all surrounding Aspen. And that's why the traffic pattern or situation that we have around Aspen. As you can see, our oldest building is Middle North, which was built in 1975, and it has had no additions. Elementary, the most recent building built is the Town Line Dual Language, which was built in 2005. The bonds for it, since it says year built, I think that's the year completion. The bonds for it or the referendum for it was on the 2002 ballot. So that's the year of completion. The rest of the buildings are the additions. It says Elementary South has had 1, Aspen had 1. That was what their former name was, but this will tell you how old our buildings were and what we did. So the main concern is that we have exceeded capacity. Our buildings are full and we are short on space, not only for classrooms, but also for programming. Here is the enrollment history for you. And as you can see, in the past few years, we have been growing at a great pace. I also want to bring to your attention to the fact that our enrollment changes month to month. So you can't compare the maximum number of students in the past year of 2016 to the beginning of this year in September. So that's why I've added the last line, which kind of compares the September enrollment from last year to the September enrollment of this year. And you can see that we are up by 41 students. We heard in the comments that some people don't believe the numbers. These are kids we get in every day. We bus them in, we greet them at the doors, we get them into their classes. We report these numbers to the state and federal agencies. Our funding and grants depend on this. We have oversight by multiple agencies on our reporting. These numbers are fact. This is the enrollment that we have. This is the number of students we have in our classes.
No question.
Good.
2016, we had over 4,400 students.
Yes, but this is September. It's
So that's by the end of the school year?
Right.
That year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes.
We grow approximately 2 to 3% district as
I
the year.
thought she was saying these were all in September.
No.
Gotcha.
So that is the end of the school
End of
year,
school,
and just
gotcha.
for comparison, it was September of 2016 to 20 this school year to compare apples to apples
I'm with
as
you.
far as the dates go. So we will grow further. So at the end of this year, I'm sure we'll cross the 44, 42 mark of end of last year, which was our maximum growth
Okay.
at the reporting time.
Gotcha.
I believe the last report given had enrollment at 43.
Yeah, I thought so. I
42
thought
or
it
something
started
like
with that, yeah.
Yeah.
But any more comments, additions? So to understand the enrollment patterns, we sought services of Dr. Casada. He's a professor from North Carolina who is highly regarded in his field. His services have been used by Stevenson, Buffalo Grove School District, Lincolnshire, amongst others, and most recently by the Schaumburg School District. Some of our neighboring districts also did the demographic study at the same time as us, as they were also experiencing increased enrollment. As you know, the Buffalo School District is also looking for additions. Lincolnshire just built additions to their schools too. So he gives estimates in about 3 series. Series A, if the turnover and fertility rate drops. Series B, at sustained growth. And Series C, at increased growth. As you can see last year, so if you can see the Series B is in yellow, Series C is in the tealish color, and those red dots is where the enrollment patterns are. So those are the enrollment patterns of last year. And the red of 2016-17 is the enrollment pattern of the total year that I've used, which is 44, 42 at the end of the year. But in 2017-18, that red dot is from the last September enrollment that I had. But as you can see, the enrollment surpassed the numbers of both Series B and C projection. This year, taking the number of September and predicting a 3% growth that we usually see, not just years, we predict that we will approximately be at about 4,500. So this is at 4,500, which would be the predicted growth this year. This number is lower than Series C, but definitely higher than Series B. Even with less than the 3% predicted growth, we would have crossed the Series B mark. So according to Series B, our enrollment would have been 4,476 in 2020-2021 year, 2020 and 21 year. We are there right now. Our numbers are there right now. So demographics are a 10-year projection. So with Series C, we predicted to have about 5,069 students by 2025-26. This is approximately 570 students more than we currently have. This is close to the number of students in elementary north currently. So the number of growth we predict in 2025-26 is actually a whole school building. These numbers, and the reason we wanted to show you these numbers is why we also heard that why did we choose Series C and not Series B was chosen as an enrollment pattern to accommodate the new or the remodeled facilities. So this is because building a building when you have already surpassed or you have more kids than the projected number of kids, it's like it doesn't bring any relief to the current lack of space or future enrollment. It wouldn't have been smart or been fiscally responsible at all. Because in both those charts, you've already covered Series B. If you build for that, you're already short space again. Anybody else would like to add anything?
No, ma'am.
So this slide shows you the planned developments as of today. So the increase in enrollment is coming not only from the generational turnover and move-ins, but will also come from these developments as they are built. Riviera Estates has 61 lots, of which I think about 20 are built. And these, so we have about still, even if you give or take about 30, as half of it still needs to have building, and that is boundaried into Elementary South and Middle South. Cuneo Farm they've started with the earth moving, and you can see the nice facade they have outside on Milwaukee. These are going to be 128 single-family homes, and these would be built in. These will be boundaried into by the recommendation of the administration into Elementary North and Middle North. Melody Farm, they have about 100 2 to 3 bedroom apartments, and they are all boundaried into will be boundaried into by the administration's recommendation into Aspen and Middle South. And that is on the agenda for the next meeting. Woodland Chase, we have about 15 to 20 single-family homes that will be boundaried for us, and that would be also Aspen and Middle South. Since that subdivision goes to 2 different districts, that is still under negotiations, how that would happen. And there's a Majestic Pines. It's only a 10-home development, and that is boundaried into Aspen and Middle South. So we've currently written a position paper, delivered it to the villagers of Vernon Hills, Mundelein, and Libertyville. We have expressed our concern to them about new housing developments within our district limits that would cause increased enrollment, as we are currently struggling with space. We have invited them to come and visit our schools to see the accommodations and adjustments we are making. We have also reached out to our state representatives with our concern. We are pursuing the village to see if they can help us financially to offset the expansion and remodeling or any ongoing operation costs. The villages cannot change the impact fee formula. We believe it is a lengthy process and involves townships, county, and state too. So we cannot at this time expect more funding from the new housing or developers than it has already been impacted in. This is response to the questions or comments we got as to what are we doing for the new developments that are going in. So this is what we as a board and administration have tried to do. We've reached out to the villages, we've reached out to our representatives. People have said, why don't we ask for impact? We can ask them for a donation, but as far as the impact formula goes, that is not changing so suddenly. We would encourage the community to definitely speak out at the village meetings about new developments and their other concerns such as traffic. There was a comment that was there which was a few number of times, which was, and we want to address this, which was sending kids to Libertyville and Mundelein kids to Mundelein. This is not possible. We have parts of Vernon Hills, such as Grosse Pointe, that go to Mundelein. Deer Path and Stone Fence there's some sections of Deer Path and Stone Fence which go to Lincolnshire School District. Redistricting and moving town boundaries along with the property taxes that are associated with it is a job well above our jurisdiction. It is at a county and state level. And right now, we do not have the resources to take this on. If you feel really strongly about it, I would encourage you all to talk to your local and state representatives. At this time, as a district, we do not have the manpower or the financial strength to pursue the legal fees to pursue something like this right now of major redistricting of students.
Well, also, doesn't it require that the people that would get the students would also have to agree to it? So
Yes.
I can't picture Libertyville or Mundelein agreeing to take extra students.
You would have to have agreement from the others to accept them. They're full, they're growing, and you are correct in that. And so it's a big process that just doesn't happen by any means. And then there's the financial impact. If you were to send so many students in different directions, you would actually have too much building and lose revenue from taxes also. There's that aspect of it that people are not aware of.
So I just wanted to address that concern, as it was something in the comment section, came up pretty regularly. Now, this is an important slide, and before we get into something, I want to address something. We've heard that we have, people in the comments, we've heard we have space. Not all schools are full. So let us assure you, we are full. Each and every school is, and I would encourage you to talk to other community members who send students to other schools in the district and hear what their students and children are experiencing. I would ask you to call the school which you think has space and request a tour. And again, these numbers are facts. These are the adjustments made. This slide shows you the capacity of all schools and the current enrollment. The enrollment is of September 2017. Capacity is also a very complicated issue. Let's take Elementary South and Middle North, for example. You see the capacity of building, and then you see the enrollment, which is more than the capacity. You know the building is full. It's over capacity. That is easy. But capacity is just not the number of students, but also the space for programming and services we want our students to have so that they can be successful. Example, we have 75 kids in a grade, so we can put them in 3 classrooms we have. Now they need additional space for music, art, PE, lunch. That's given because you can't have music in the class. The class next door would be disturbed. You don't want art in the class. It's messy and obvious. PE in class, no. Lunch, obvious. So now that there are obvious space needs, but now we have students in that class who might need extra help, special services, or enrichment. So now we need 2 classes at least for these 2 groups which need to be pulled out. We can't put them in the hallway. That's not ideal. So there's your capacity of 3 classrooms that just increased to a little bit more. Some needs of students other than classrooms are large spaces like PE, dedicated rooms like music, or smaller classrooms for services and differentiation. Also, another caveat with capacity is numbers enrolled. The capacity is 75 kids with 25-to-1 ratio. So we need 3 classrooms. But now we have only 60 students enrolled in that grade. We still need 3 classrooms. You can't put them in 2. So the enrollment looks lower, but your capacity is still full. You have 3 classrooms, they're gone. You can't put them in 2. That would be 30 students to a teacher. So now let's go through these numbers, capacity and enrollment. We'll show you the specific adjustments made for each school to accommodate the needs in the next slides. So to keep it simple, we are just stating classroom spaces. This does not include this is capacity is classroom. This doesn't include anything else. This is just here. So elementary north, it looks lower, but you have to remember that elementary north houses our LOP program. The capacity of LOP classrooms is 10 students. So if we have 50 students, which people might expect to be in 2 classrooms, they need 5 classrooms if they are LOP classrooms. So with the enrollment looking lower than capacity, with the needs of the student in that building, they are full. Townline and dual language. The enrollment looks lower, but Townline has 2 grades, 1st and 5th, that need extra classrooms. So they have 3 sections per grade, but they are both the 1st and the 5th grade at Townline has 4 sections each. So they need 2 extra classrooms to the 18 that they have capacity for. Sorry, you were saying something, Jason?
Yeah, so why is the capacity for Townline dual language 925 and not 900?
I will have to go back and double check that.
I do 3, so it's 6 sections, right? K through 5.
Right.
Times 25 times
I think
6.
they converted that space upstairs to a classroom that used to be.
Right. We converted a space.
Okay.
The other
actually, 1 grade can have 4 without displacing
Right.
anything. Yeah.
Got it.
The other piece on this too, when we add these up, when you look at them, as Sonali was saying, some of the programming, like an LOP class, eats up. All of these numbers of students then generate need for ELL rooms or special ed rooms, and then those are lower
And
numbers.
The same with Aspen, with only 3 sections, yet the capacity is 575, which would kind of say that it should be more like North, with 4 sections per grade.
These are the numbers I was given.
Yeah, we double check. But on the on the Aspen, it doesn't have enough classrooms to go 4 sections per grade level for every grade level.
Yep.
And
So then the
accommodate.
capacity should not be 575. then.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to double check that number. Right.
So this is one of the pieces that keeps getting questioned. What's our true capacity? So I think that came up a lot in some of the conversation was, are we over capacity? Are we not over capacity? Someone takes a look at these numbers, say, wait a minute. Hey, if I've got capacity 575 at Aspen, I can go to 4 sections if they just do the straight math of 25 per class. Same with Townline. Oh, I can get an extra classroom out of there. So making sure those numbers are consistent in terms of how we get to them, and to explain, if it's capacity but we have extra room but we don't have common space, then that would indicate a lower capacity. How we would have a higher capacity, that needs to be explained.
Well, and along those same lines, I'm almost wondering if we decide to go back to another presentation of a modified EFMP or whatever we're going to do, who knows, I think we almost need to put a programming capacity is different than a literal physical body capacity, because it is different. I mean, if because of our programming needs, we can only fit 500 in elementary north, and that needs to be set, or whatever the number is. I mean, I'm making that up off the top of my head, but
And we can do that. And yes, because they're actually
it's a harder number to come up with.
Right.
But
fire rating capacity is much higher than these numbers.
well, of
You can
course,
cram them in there.
Yeah, if
then
it's
you-
standing room only.
right. Then
be able to have some visitors.
Right. But then you have the classroom capacity. Then you do have the programming capacity, and those adjust as we've added more programs, and so the numbers go down.
And we do need to obviously make sure that each number is correct, because if
right.
somebody finds a problem with one number, they're not going to trust any of the numbers.
Yep. People.
All right.
Aspen has lower numbers, but they have extra classrooms and second and fourth grade, one classroom each, and the fifth grade has 2 extra classrooms. So they have 4 more than their capacity of 18, actually. So they have full classrooms on that. Elementary South and Middle North, that's obvious. They have higher numbers of enrollment than whatever the capacity is. Middle South has our middle school LOP program. So at this point, we would also like to point out that our ELL population is increasing and is at 23%. Last year, we had 220 students in Elementary South. This year, we have 256 already. The number of special ed students has also increased to 14%. With all this, the space needed for services and special instruction has also increased. So depending on the number of students you have in a particular school with needs, you need programming space for pulling. Some comments mentioned that grandfathering increased enrollment in certain schools and not in others. We have 1 more year of grandfathering left, and after that, the number of grandfathered kids within a building drops significantly due to transportation cutoff. We are not planning on redistricting right now and will take all precautions to avoid doing it. You should be aware that even if the bubble classes weren't there in the school, the total number of kids in the district would remain the same, even though they would just move from one school to another. So you still have to provide for about 4,400 students, and you don't have where they are. We understand that some people are still upset about reboundary and removal of choice schools. It was a decision made to better distribute our student populations, numbers versus school capacity, and to some extent the socioeconomic distribution. We are not going to debate those decisions again and again and again. Another topic that people bring up is...
Wait, quick. One comment on the reorganization. There was a lot of, I would characterize as misunderstanding as to the purpose of the reorganization. A lot of comments would imply that why are we over capacity on some schools after reorganizing? The purpose of the reorganizing was not to address capacity. That was not on the table at that point in time. That was not a big issue at that point in time. The organization was mainly to rebalance the schools, and trying to address capacity was not part of the reorganizing. So to claim that, we reorganized, but yet now we are over capacity, doesn't make sense.
Well, I think it was one of the factors. I mean, when Aspen, because at the time Aspen had gotten huge because of the No Child Left Behind Act, so they were well over. Well, I think Elementary North was especially well under, and it was it is.
So it was rebalancing, but not
on
dealing with a overcapacity at a district-wide level.
No,
it was to
right.
rebalance so that
Some
underutilized
schools
schools
right.
would then be better utilized.
Right. And if folks remember too, in that process, and Robin, you were on the committee, we were having reasonable growth. Since that time, we had accelerated growth that was not anticipated. As previously mentioned, we're out at the 2021 enrollment projections in 2016-17, so we're roughly 5 years ahead of where we expected. So when that reorganization, it was balancing, but we did not anticipate the growth that we currently have. And also, if you recall, the staff daycare, which took up 4 or 5 classrooms, is not available anymore, and those classrooms now have been filled. And we made a partnership to have our early childhood and EC at Lincoln and Mundelein for 6 classrooms. So that's 10 classrooms that we've made available through actions, the board actions, and those have filled up as well. So just to remind folks of those.
Another topic that people keep bringing up is that we offered a full-day kindergarten and this caused overcrowding. At the time reorganization of the district was planned, we already had 3 kindergarten options in the district. We had an extended day extended day kindergarten for at-risk students, which was at Elementary North, South, and the School of Dual Language. Tuition-based full-day kindergarten was at Elementary North and South. These programs were intended to support our students with early intervention in order to support their achievement. Because these programs were already in existence, the overall increase of kindergarten classrooms and teachers in order to implement full-day kindergarten for all students was only 4 additional classrooms across the entire district. Removing the full-day program would not be able to solve our growth issues by itself. So taking it away, even though that was a suggestion in some comments, it does not solve our issues right now. And it benefits a lot more than people realize. So the next slide shows you the adjustments made to accommodate the enrollment. These are the current adjustments, but our schools have made similar adjustments before. Even before these adjustments were made, the district made some adjustments a year ago, which was the EC pre-K was moved out of Aspen to Lincoln and Mundelein. The daycare rooms were removed out of Elementary North to give us more classrooms. So we were experiencing growth even then, and it was kind of part of the projected stuff. So in these slides, you can see that in Elementary North, the cafeteria is being used for PE, and the PE classes are combined, and they are highly large in numbers. In Townline and Dual Language, the enrichment in Townline is on the stage, which is called the Bat Cave. The special ed teachers are in the meeting rooms of the library. They don't have their own special room. Related services are in the office/meeting rooms in the library, too. In Middle School North, the PE is in the cafeteria, chorus is in the general ed classroom, and band and orchestra classrooms are really full. You don't want to be in there in those classrooms when all those kids are playing in tune. Aspen,
Not to mention when the recorders are handed out.
in Aspen, the ELL teachers are in the library office. The band and orchestra lessons are on the stage next to the cafeteria. Though I think you want to be on the stage when you're in a band, but you know. Art and music is in the general ed classroom. Several offices have been converted into workrooms. And Elementary South is using the P space in Aspen. So the kids walk over, actually. So you can imagine how that goes. Elementary South, they've added a double portable, which is equivalent to 2 classrooms. They have 7 bilingual ELL teachers sharing 2 classrooms to service 256 students as compared to 6 servicing 220 last year. I wanted to point that out so that you can see how the programming needs differ from year to year. So people can understand it's not just students, but it's also their needs. Special education resources in the library story room, and 2 share a classroom, and 2 of them are in really small offices. Students walk to Aspen to use their gym. General music is on the stage next to the gym. Their band and orchestra lessons are provided in the old warming kitchen. Their special services, OT and PT, are in teacher workrooms, so they're really, really tiny spaces. And the special education resource teacher is in the library story room that was there. In Middle School South, the choir is in the cafeteria. The PE and the health is in the hallways. Lunch in the cafeteria is at capacity. The 4 sections of 6th grade writing are scheduled in the resource center, and 1 section of special ed resources on a cart utilizing another staff member's classroom when available. So these are the adjustments that have been made. So when we hear people saying that now no school is at capacity, these are the adjustments that you can easily read about. I mean, the environment when your child is experiencing it is definitely something. If you would like to visit our schools, tour them, we would be more than happy to arrange that for you if you could reach out to us and let us know.
And I would really encourage people to do that regardless of whether they believe this capacity issue or not. Because I just think it's sort of remarkable to watch not only what's going on, but it's remarkable to watch what our teachers have been able to accomplish despite the conditions that some of these things are in. But of course, I think especially for things like resource and special ed and stuff, we could probably be doing even better. We could get them a dedicated, appropriate space free from distraction.
And while I'm here, I mean, on behalf of the board and the community, I would really like to thank our maintenance staff and James. for all the adjustments they make for making a stage into a into an enrichment room and a warming kitchen into a music room and everything else that they do to make it so that our students can get the education and the different opportunities that they can. So on behalf of the board and the community, I would like to thank him and the maintenance staff. So with high enrollment and space concerns to meet needs of our students, we decided to hire DLR to start with the planning phase. The committee worked hard to come up with a solution that worked for the entire district. The solution included not just classroom space, but space for our other programming and services. Increase in enrollment increases needs everywhere. As you've just seen in Elementary South with, ELL bilingual, just the numbers that we have showed you. They also plan for future needs that we can foresee and opportunities we would want our students to have. They recognized various options, and this is a sampling of just a few. The two that were analyzed in depth, in addition to the one we put on the ballot, were adaptive reuse and new elementary school. So the criteria that was given to the core team was a district-wide solution, not only classrooms, but other spaces. And as we said, why did we choose a Series C projection? Because of the numbers where we are compared to B. Some of the options that were considered: converting existing schools to new schools, like Town Line to a middle school, purchasing Powers Building and reconstructing, using district office space, and I don't know where Wendy would go, but we would figure that out later. Using Lashin Center, adaptive reuse, the small and large, and building new school on an 11-acre next to the aquatic center. Those were the two options that were brought to us. The reason the others did not come to the board, we were told that these options were considered and taken away, was because they didn't work for the capacity, they didn't work financially, they were not the ideal solutions, but lots and lots of options were considered. So I wanted you to know that the core team did a lot of work. So when you see that, why lots of things were considered, but they didn't come to fruition, I just wanted you to know that. Adaptive reuse was repurposing the warehouse space for a school. It was considered in two sizes, the small and the large. The larger space, other than the obvious being expensive, also left some space in the facility that would not have been utilized. So we would have had more space than we wanted. For those reasons, it wasn't considered further. It was considered at one of the original meetings, if you guys came in October or something, but we dropped that just because of the financial reasons as well as the dead space that we would have had.
And I think there was also a survey at that point, and it was definitely not favored by the community, if I remember.
Right. Yeah, there was input at the evening in a survey.
Right.
So the second smaller facility was elementary school along with kindergarten classes and EC pre-K all together. This is for the adaptive reuse, the smaller one. This building, along with renovations to existing schools, was estimated at about $75 million. So that was one of the price tag. That's why it wasn't, considered later on. Another option was building the new elementary school next to the aquatic center along with the kindergarten building at the Sullivan Center. This option, along with the renovations, was estimated at about $62 million. The option we put on the ballot was building the kindergarten building at Sullivan with partnership with the Park District and Village and renovations and remodeling of the existing building. This option was at $52 million. The core team brought forth the two options of new elementary school and all renovations on campus. That is the last two options. Both options had kindergarten building at the Sullivan Center in it. Both the options solved the district's enrollment and curriculum and programming needs. The recommendation of the team was for the new elementary school. After much deliberation, the board chose option of building a kindergarten building and renovation and remodeling of existing buildings. These discussions took a long time, and they are all available, thanks to Dimitri, to watch on YouTube. So you can go back and watch them. So we did not come to our choice just choosing it. It was discussed, deliberated, thought through. There was a lot that went into it. And I would encourage you to go back and read the minutes if you don't want to sit and watch us debate. Some of the salient features of that decision was the kindergarten building would have been built in both the cases. The board decided that a new elementary building would have added more dollars to our operational and maintenance budget. The need for administrators and support staff would have increased more with a new building as compared to increasing the square footage to the existing buildings and adding more staff as enrollment grew in the current buildings. These were some of the topics that were debated. Putting two new buildings on Aspen would also cause a lot of traffic issues. Though minor, this was one of the reasons crowding on the south of 60 with the kindergarten building and the new elementary south building was these were some of the things that we debated. So you guys are welcome to go back and look at what we debated at that time. I just wanted to point out these were just some of the options that we debated in the meetings that we did go through. Anything else? Anybody want to add?
No, thanks.
Okay. Since the referendum plan won't fit into the all in one slide, I broke it up into plans to explain some of the details. The elementary north building, addition to this building were of PE and a multi-purpose room space. The other addition was adding the EC pre-K. The EC pre-K relocation, this has been a hot topic or was a lot on the comment card, so I wanted to show this to you. The Lincoln School is working well in cooperation with District 75 and District 79 for us. The feedback from our parents who have students there has been extremely satisfactory. On the referendum, we asked for permission to bring EC pre-K back to our school. This was a permission to do it in the future. We would have evaluated the impact it would have had financially in building the additional classrooms in Elementary North versus leasing at Lincoln. We would also have assessed the financial impact of services that would be needed, and we would be able to offer. It is cost effective to share some specialized services with 2 other schools versus hiring our own, and hiring your own specialized services is also very difficult because they're very in demand, and so it becomes difficult to get somebody. We cannot move EC pre-K within the kindergarten building because there isn't enough space to build that many classrooms at the Sullivan Center. This was one of the questions people asked, why don't we put EC pre-K with kindergarten? There is not enough land space to build anything out for there. For 6 more classrooms that would be needed just for the EC pre-K. So I wanted to make sure that people understood that. In Middle North building, the classroom additions along with PE and music space were, all those blue things that you see, those were the additions that we had said would be needed. And if you saw the adjustments, those are the adjustments that we are talking about. We are making the adjustments, so we are adding the space for the adjustments that we are making, which was the PE and the music room. I think you should go and sit with Mrs. Greenwell and Mr. C sometime in the Middle North music and band room to understand why we need that music space so badly. Townline and dual language, again, needed classroom additions because right now they have displaced programming as well as they have programming that comes into them as renovations and growth occurs. The next one is the Aspen, again, was renovation. Aspen, as you can see, because it was only a renovation of a little bit of space that was needed. In Elementary South, as you've seen, it has the strongest need for space. So there was addition of classrooms, music rooms, PE space, because they are right now going to think they have music in the classroom. So I just wanted to show you that what we were adding is not something we thought we were just adding for the reason. They were added with the specific adjustments we were making, with the specific needs each building had. We didn't add anything to a building that the building did not need. And this one is the Middle South. It just has an additional classroom space and the kindergarten building. So the kindergarten building, the schematic was approved last meeting on Monday. And this will house all our kindergarten students other than the dual language students. Moving the kindergarten student gives us space for classroom in Aspen, Elementary North, Town Line, and Elementary South. So the reason why we heard there were people who were not happy with this kindergarten building. So we wanted to touch base a little bit on that. We have limited amount of reserves. This is your money from the taxes that the administration and the board has saved over time. On analyzing, we decided that we could use $12 million towards construction and expansion. According to Brad, our finance director at the time in the summer, we wanted to keep at least 3 months of surplus if for some reason the taxes and the grants from the state and federal didn't come through. We also need to maintain a certain amount of reserve to have our financial standings or ratings. Of all the buildings that needed remodeling and expansion, we decided that spending that money on building a kindergarten building would give us the maximum relief in all our elementary buildings. This would free up classrooms in all the elementary schools. This, however, does not help the middle schools at all. So they are still crunched for space. Building the kindergarten building with the partnership with the Park District and the village was a sound financial decision. The $12 million would not afford us to buy land and build a kindergarten building anywhere else in Vernon Hills. So we were limited with that. There was no land available elsewhere to buy at a reasonable price. We also saved significant amount of money by the partnership with the Park District in that we don't have to build a gym, which in itself would cost up to $2 to $3 million from our architect estimates. People asked us if we could consider buying land near Menards. It is not an option. It is extremely expensive. So much so that even Menards is a 2-story building because they couldn't build it all into one piece land. If Menards Corporation tells you they can't afford land, that's why they will go up and it's cheaper for them. We can't go that way either. We are considering traffic on Aspen and working with the village to get an easement so the buses could exit at the back on Deer Path and Atrium instead of Aspen, since traffic was one of the concerns that was brought up in the surveys a lot. And we are very well aware of it. People asked about the details of start time, parking spaces, and other things, and this will be worked out with the community and students in our minds, along with the library and the Park District and the village, and we will communicate them as soon as they are finalized. You're welcome to watch the board meetings, which is where all these discussions will happen on a regular basis till we reach a decision. Teachers' input was taken in the design phase of this building. People asked if we did take the teachers' input. We did. They were there. They were very well represented. During the process of the 2 options which were presented in 2016, in October and December, and the meetings and discussions of EFMP, the kindergarten building was an element for both the options. We did not receive feedback from the community during any of the town halls, special meetings, board meetings, email, let's talk, that they were opposed to the plans. Because this is in response to people telling us that they did not know why the kindergarten building was not given as an option. It was always part of the plan, in all the plans, whether we had even built a new elementary school across from the aquatic center, next to the aquatic center. It was always part of the plan. So they were always on the drawing board. The $12 million from the reserves gave us the best leverage at solving our needs at a kindergarten building. This was part of the EFMP. It was just not part of the referendum that went out. Because it came from the reserves, that means we had already, as taxpayers, paid for it in some sort and form. We could not add additional classrooms onto existing buildings and not build the kindergarten building. The way the land around the building is available, if we had to add to all the buildings in addition to the kindergarten rooms being there, we don't have enough land to go out and build outwards. From all the architect planning that was done, we needed to move the kindergartners out. We cannot build that many. For example, if the elementary south kids stayed there, so the 5 classrooms plus all the needs that they have, we don't have enough space around the building, land around the building to build for that much. That's just not possible. That was one of the questions or comments that was there. The 11-acre land next to the aquatic center and across from Elementary South was part of the referendum. It was added to the plan as we were able to acquire this land for less than market value from the Park District. It was thought that we should hold on to the land for future need, future as in 10 years out. It was not part of the construction or rebuilding. We have received feedback that some of the community did not like buying the land and holding on to it. They did not want their tax dollars to be used for that. In our future discussions, we will definitely take this feedback into consideration when we go back to discuss how do we want to solve our needs. Anything else?
Yeah, can I add
Sure.
one thing? Several minutes ago, you mentioned that, there were no additions that didn't have to be there on this plan. I do want to acknowledge to the community that I can't speak for anybody but myself, but I did read the comments, and I do understand that at least a decent portion of the population that answered the survey felt like STEM additions were not necessary. So the debate on whether all the additions were necessary, I think, is still out.
Thank you. Next slide. STEM centers. Additions are important for students. That's success. For student success, that's a 68% people said yes of the survey that was taken, but there was separate, they also were enough people that were not in favor of the STEM centers. They were not favorable of the separate facility. They did not think that the centers in elementary schools, they were favorable. They wanted to teach STEM in the classroom in elementary schools, and they were questioning what curriculum was that was going to be taught. STEM centers was a part of a 10-year plan. This is what will be needed for education of future students. Remember, EFMP is a 10-year plan. It's also for the future, not just current. STEM careers are growing at double the rate of other occupations with accelerated growth in fields like computer science and engineering. This is not a statement we made up. This is from U.S. Department of Labor and Commerce. Nowadays, every job, from engineering to a technician in any field, needs to know about electronics, coding, and engineering. We are moving towards driverless cars, so your car mechanic will need to know how electronics and computers work. Keeping STEM-based jobs of the future in mind, it was decided that if we are building onto our schools, now to accommodate enrollment, we should add on a dedicated space for STEM exploration. The facilities would have been a space within a building like a library or a music room. It was not a separate building. Doing STEM in the classroom was not recommended by the educators as it requires dedicated space for manipulators, and it would be cumbersome for teachers and students to break apart their models and rebuild them again. You should walk down the middle north sometimes, and in the hallways, you'll see all their models kind of lined up sometimes when they needed the classroom space for something else. This is similar to having an art room or music room. It is just a dedicated space to do dedicated work. You don't do art in the class. You don't have music in the classroom. That was just a science lab. Science experiments also sometimes need specifics, such as fume hoods, wash stations, or non-corrosive surfaces, which would be hard to accommodate within the classrooms, the same way as a kiln for art cannot be accommodated in a class. The community had concerns regarding the STEM curriculum and teaching STEM in elementary grades. Though at this point we don't have the exact curriculum, we will present examples of some units that could be taught at different grades when we make the decision of how we will pursue the EFMP coming up. We introduce music when kids don't know notes or how to read music. We introduce art when they can't hold brushes. We teach them ceramics, and we as parents have experienced the clay pots and the turtle or the owls or whatever comes home. Similarly, exposing kids to science or scientific models of inquiry and experimentation has benefits, even if they choose not to pursue a career in the STEM field. This was some of the thinking that we went with when we decided to add STEM centers. It is not a need for as of today, but this was a need for 10 years out. If you're remodeling and if you're asking, putting a dedicated classroom for doing something that would be specific, which would benefit all the students and would be a requirement for the future students, was something we thought was important. We did hear what they said, and I hope we'll keep continuing to have these discussions as we go forward.
Do you happen to have the actual survey handy without me going back through every single? Because I could have sworn that I remembered the way it was worded on the survey was more that STEM is important for student success. And I think that was what got like the 68% or so, but that the additions was a separate comment, or people were commenting separately on the additions, which sort of led me to believe that while a lot of people think STEM is important for the students, having it in a dedicated facility was a different issue to them. And so important and necessary are two
And I
sort
don't
of different
remember.
things.
There seemed to be confusion that some people felt that the STEM centers were a standalone building, and they were not. They were changed to
Additions.
attach additions to the buildings or renovation
Right,
space
but
in
either
the
way,
buildings.
like I
Right.
think
So
the
there's
way I
confusion
had
around
read
that.
it is like there was a difference between thinking it was a good thing to include in the curriculum versus thinking it should have its own dedicated space.
No, but that's what. So, you know,
So
like
that's,
I said,
that's really where what you're talking about right now comes in, which is either educating the community on that, or we'll have to look at that going forward, because I think there's a big.
I have the results
Yeah.
tabulated towards the end too, to kind of
Okay.
see where everything landed up. But like if you say STEM centers are important or STEM education is important, then you have to have it somewhere, and that was the reasoning why we are,
Right, it's
we are
just a
saying
matter of-
that
right.
it is not a facility; it's a classroom or a place. So I wanted to give them what the logic behind ours was. It's not that we are not going to take their feedback into consideration, but we wanted them to know where we came from when we decided to do this
Right.
and what we were thinking when we did this.
Right.
If it wasn't clear in our communication before, we just want to make sure that it's understood.
So we made it an integral part of each building, just like band, just like art is.
That's
And
what.
So it's not a standalone STEM facility, which I think,
Right, but I
Some
think that
mis-
message was lost.
yes, exactly.
So
Because the option B had it as standalone, but then we changed it,
Right.
and there was some delay in getting that updated on the website. So some people may have looked at it and said, oh, option B is what you're going for. This has got a standalone, so that's what was in their mind. So,
Because this one says, providing high-quality STEM programming to all students. Yeah, I think lots of people agree with that.
Yeah.
But that's different than a separate classroom. Okay.
So these are some of the issues that were tabulated from the comment section. So we went through the comments one at a time. And if your comment you had a problem with the kindergarten center and Middle North, it went into both places. If you had a problem with the relocation and STEM, it went into both places. That's how it got tabulated. So when we say that a topic, please realize that there were community members which were for and against. Some liked the idea, some did not. It's just because we don't have a breakup of for and against in every single topic doesn't mean it wasn't there. So please be aware of that. Some of the issues that were to be addressed was the kindergarten building on Aspen and approval from community. We just told you that. EC pre-K at North or at kindergarten building. Village, the new housing, impact fees, give money to District 73. Facilities, various options that were considered, renovate the current facilities instead of build. That's what we went with. Feel all schools won't benefit equally. No, that's not the thing. We didn't put a gym where they didn't need a gym. Buying the land, why we decided to do it, and we hear what you didn't like about it. Worried that we'll have empty classrooms as population changes. I don't think so, but we can discuss this further because you have the enrollment numbers, you have the projection numbers. Upset about the boundary adjustments from past, not discussing it. Most wants in the plans than needs. I don't think there were wants. We have made adjustments. We've shown you the adjustments. These were not wants. These are needs that we have. If they are not immediate needs, these are needs that we predict that we'll have a little bit down the road. So these were not things that we were just thinking of. Teacher and community input. It was completely sought. The core team had teachers and community members on it. The kindergarten planning stages had community members and teachers on it. STEM centers in elementary school curriculum and teaching them in class. We just addressed that. So I just wanted to show that, as through the previous slides, these are some of the issues that were really big, and I've tried to address them in this manner. This is the best way we thought we could address them. I'm sorry if it doesn't meet. And like I said, if your question didn't get answered, your explanation was not provided, please reach out to us and we'll do our. Funding and finances was one of the big things that was a topic. So this is our sources of funding from various resources. This will inform you that schools are run by the property taxes that we pay. And that is why our taxes are high. Illinois ranks third highest in property taxes. It also ranks last in funding coming from state for education. And we are the third worst among states in the pension liability crisis. This will explain why our taxes are high and why we as a community pay for everything. So when people asked for the funding and the resources, this is why the taxes are where they are. This is what Illinois does. Please be an active citizen. And
Can I say one thing about that last slide? In case people aren't aware, although 87% of our funding comes from local taxes, it is not 87% of your property tax bill that goes to the schools.
Yes.
It's high. It's like 71%. But don't get those two things confused. It is not, we're not taking almost 90% of your tax bill. We have amazing services in this community. It all costs money.
high school takes some too.
That's true too. We are taking, don't get me, I meant the schools in general. It wasn't literally Hawthorn's taking 71%. It's all the schools. It's 128 and it's 73. But it is a high amount, but it is not 87%.
I think the other important thing is, regardless of the source of funding, if you look at the dollars per pupil that we tax to get, that we spend, we're pretty average with all the other states.
You're actually at the lower end. I'll show you that slide.
Well, that's our district, but even in the state, as statewide, given the low state funding and the high local funding, our dollars per pupil we're not way out there. You can't look at this and say, oh, we have 87% local funding for our kids. We should probably be spending way high per pupil. That's not the case. We just have to make up for the lack of state in our local. but we spend on average pretty much similar to many other states in terms of total dollars per pupil. We just get it from a different bucket than many other states.
Well, and even parts of Illinois, the rural areas get better state funding than we do, correct?
Yes.
Right now, we are just concerned about us. This is an expense slide, which people wanted to know where do the money that we have goes. So most of our expenses are in the educational fund, which includes salaries and benefits and the purchase services, supplies, material, capital outlay, and other things. Something else to consider while looking at income and expenses of the district is we have 28% free and reduced population. This is higher than Mundeleins. And since we get compared to Libertyville all the time, they are at 5%. So I think people should be aware of that when you compare, it's not actually, you should compare apples to apples to an extent. We have 23% ELL and 14% special ed. These require additional teachers and support staff. So this comes from the expense column too. So it's not just students enrolled, it's also the needs of the student. The population of students in ELL and special ed has also increased in the recent years. We heard from some community members that we don't pay our teachers enough, and some that said that we pay them too much. We have heard from both sides of the aisle.
Oh my God.
Let us assure you that our teachers and administrators are middle of the road as compared to the surrounding district. Of our salaries in the expense column, only 7.2% is for administrators, which includes central office, principals, assistant principals, and coordinators. The rest is the teachers and the support staff, including aides and assistant, because we were told that people didn't like what they see. Other thing was the pension. Okay, pension is in the Illinois Constitution, and we have to pay what our dues are required. There's nothing we can do about it. So if you're mad at the pension, please reach out to your state representative. We can't do anything about it. So people were unhappy about it.
We're mad about it too.
But it's like, I can't do it. It's about my pay grade.
You mean your pay of zero?
Everything is
right,
exactly. This is the expenditure per student. And as you can see, we are at the lower end as compared to other districts. So it's a kind of a hard slide to see. We are lower than Grays Lake. We are lower than Fremont. We are lower than Diamond Lake. Of course, we are lower than Kildare and, Lincolnshire and Oak Grove and Lake Forest. But I wanted to make sure that people understood this, that, when people say that we are high, no, we are not high. If we compare our districts, our surrounding districts, our neighboring, even if we compare Fremont and Diamond Lake, which is right next door to, Lake Forest and Lincolnshire down the street, we are pretty low as compared to them. So I wanted to show it to you. We also should recognize that we have 4,300 students. We are one of the largest elementary districts in Lake County, and we operate 9 buildings, including the district office and the maintenance facility at Tower. So our expenses, if you operate 1 building or 2 buildings versus you're operating 9, is going to be a bit different. We have that many students, our expenditure per pupil is going to be a bit different. You have to take that into consideration. So back to the referendum. I hope we have explained most of your concerns and questions. And if there's any particular topic that you would like more information or we weren't clear enough, please reach out to us as the board or at the district office, and we will go over it again. Regarding the referendum, our ask was $42 million after using the $12 million from reserves for the kindergarten building. The breakdown of each building is listed. We heard that each facility would receive something different. Yes, they would receive the remodel or renovation based on the needs from their existing space. So each building wouldn't get the same remodel, but they would meet the needs of the students similarly. Our buildings are not same. They have different capacities. They have different things. The things that would go in would be different. That's why. We asked for permission to issue $42 million in bonds. We would not have issued all of it at the same time. We have 5 years to issue them after the referendum passes. This referendum was permission to issue that total amount. We would not have started the construction on all the sites at the same time. This would have been a very difficult task for our administrators and Wendy to manage, along with doing the job of educating our students. This construction job would have been done in phases, and each step we would have evaluated if our needs had changed. Example, when it came time to add EC pre-K, we would have evaluated the existing programming at Lincoln, the dollar amounts needed to construct and not share costs. We would have taken into account the parent input. And if at that point it was decided not to construct, we wouldn't have issued the bond. If we don't issue the bond, you don't pay for it. Since we don't know how much we would undertake at one time, the estimate of how much you would pay was run over $350,000 market value of the house for the total value of $42 million. It was $26 per month for approximately $310 annually. Realistically, we would not have issued bonds for $42 million at one time. So all the taxpayers would have paid less than the estimated $26 per month. Also, we currently have outstanding debt that we are paying that comes off in 2024. Once that debt comes off our books, our community's contribution would drop. That debt is non-recallable, which means we cannot restructure it. It is what we, the current board and administration, inherited. It is what it is. One of the comments was how we would pay for the operating costs. Some of the increased operating costs would come from the newer property taxes and impact fees from new developments, and the rest from our current budget. Every year, when the administration sets the new budget, they take a hard look at expenses and areas where we can trim. We have administrators writing grants so we can use those to support some of our students. We really work hard to trim costs without affecting the quality of education. We, the community, should be proud of the fact that when the state hadn't passed the budget, there were schools around us that sent letters to their community that April might be a stretch, that they would stay open, or some only till October of this year, that is this month. We didn't need to. We could have floated for a while. It would have been hard, but we wouldn't have to shut down. The district wasn't so financially stable about a few years ago, and now we have enough surplus that we can at least build the kindergarten building to alleviate some pressure. I think our community needs to recognize this. If you have specific questions regarding finance or debt, please reach out to Mr. Abe Singh or Mr. Brown. This is not my wheelhouse. I know a lot, but not enough that I can explain everything in details over a slide. So please, if you have questions, if you have concerns, if there's something that's not clear, please reach out to understand it better. Any comments?
No, I do like the way you just explained it, and I do think that if we make another stab at anything like this, we definitely need to educate that piece better. I think message again was totally not received, that this was not going to all be issued at once, and it was just simply permission to issue, and if we never ended up needing some of it, it was never going to be used. That was definitely, I think, lost.
I think that's one thing that came out of the survey is we need to do a better job at educating public as to what we're doing. So it's not an advocate in the sense of, yes, please go out and vote. Yes, this is why we're doing it. This is what we need to do.
Right.
It's just educating and to address many of the misconceptions, just things that people are not aware of, that they need the information to make the right decision, and we need to get that information out there. I think the survey really highlighted that need.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah, one thing that the district didn't do or could do a better job of.
Good feedback.
Yeah.
So now to the breakdown of comments by questions. And this was the number 8 question. How much do you agree with each of the following statements? And the 3 meetings ago, we went through these comments in detail, so I'm not going to go over these in depth. But in this question, most people disagree that there is enough space, but agree that our facilities, support students and STEM additions are important. So this was kind of the split that came forward. The comments in this section were mostly from that section. If you look at the tabulated form, most of the comments, and as I told you, in your response, you gave 2 comments about 2 different things. They went in 2 different columns. So the comments were mostly about EC pre-K facilities, about moving them from elementary north or to the kindergarten building. The next most commented topic was STEM in this facility, in a separate facility, and the curriculum for it. I hope we've answered most of your questions that came around to this. The next question was with regard to the education facilities master plan. Please rank each of the following by importance. The top priority was minimizing the tax burden, ensuring high quality education, and accommodating growth. Most of the comments in this section were about STEM, which I hope that we have answered for you before. The next slide was which of the following facility needs should be the top priority of the school district.
Can I clarify one thing? So if you go back to that previous slide, most of the comments were about STEM.
Yes.
Half could be positive, half could be negative.
Right.
So
Yes.
it's just comment
Just
about.
about STEM.
So
About STEM.
Not in
understand
favor
that-
or against.
Yes.
Yes. Because we didn't have.
No, it's a good reminder.
As a reminder, because this was a lot of work for all of us. So this was not.
It was a hot topic.
It was, but I hope we've answered the questions that came up. For the for people, for the against people, I hope we've been able to understand that. Which of the following facility needs should be the top priority of the school district? Facility seems to be the top priority. Most comments were about ensuring that all schools were treated equally and had similar opportunities. I hope that we were able to convince you that each school would get the renovations that they needed and that all our students would get the same education throughout, no matter which school they went to. In this, as you can see, the facilities was the biggest topic that was talked about. What are your top concerns regarding the Hawthorn 73 Education Facilities Master Plan? The top concerns from this top question were finance, budget, and taxes. I hope we have explained these to you, and if you want more information, like I said, please reach out. We are very cognizant of our taxpayers and our finances. We have budget hearings and the budget is published. We just approved our latest budget on September 11th. We are very transparent about our budget and welcome all questions and comments. You can come to Nick and Abe, who's not there, but to Abe, and they'll be more than willing to sit down with you and go through it with you. We didn't have anybody contact us regarding the one we recently approved, just to point out. But we can assure you that the administration and the board works really hard to be fiscally conservative and financially stable and still provide for all the needs of our student.
One comment on this.
Sure.
So one of the higher items is the bottom one, a better solution. So when I looked at the comments, a high number, as we can see here, the comments kind of pointed to they wanted something better, or they didn't feel that we looked at all the options, or did we consider everything? So when you went through at the very beginning the show, yes, we did. We spent a long time looking at many options, multiple dozens, almost 100. I think the master plan committee looked at hundreds of options of what can be done. So when the comments come back, did you consider this? Did you consider this? Or why didn't you think about this? Or is there a better solution? My bet would be they did. It was considered, but for whatever reason, when they looked at the big picture of what was needed, it didn't come into the facility master plan. So we can always be, Monday morning quarterback and look at it and say, why didn't you think? But, for the most part, I would say that a lot of things were considered, and what was presented was what the committee felt was the best solution.
And I think either way going forward, obviously, when we consider whatever solution we're going to consider or solutions, it's going to be a cost-benefit analysis. Yeah. There may be a better solution out there. It may also be $195 million.
Like building on Menard's land? If somebody writes me a check, we'll build it there.
I mean, exactly. Like, there's a parcel over on this strip, or there's okay, well, those aren't being given 11 acres for $2.3 million like the Park District was. Those are given, 11 acres for $12 million. It's a little bit different. So, and I'm not saying that there isn't a better solution out there at the right price. There may be that we haven't thought of yet, but like Jason said, there were tons and tons of things thought of in those hours that the core team worked. I think the only thing I would have probably done differently with that, and I think I mentioned it back when they presented in December, is if that committee reconvenes or a similar committee reconvenes, I would love for some minutes to be taken where somebody could literally just jot down bullet points of everything that was thought of, and if it was discarded, why was it discarded? And then we could sort of publish that to everybody and go, so if you think we haven't thought of this, boom, 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 here's what we have thought of. Now, if you have a better solution, by all means, step forward.
So that, that was part of the mini or the couple of different public meetings that we had when these plans were presented before the board even selected any of them. Give us feedback. What's your better solution? What do you think would be what could improve on these? So it wasn't just here it is, go with it. We try to say exactly that. What's a better solution? What do you think would make it better?
Yeah, we went through all the comments and suggestions. Many of them had already been vetted through. There were a few we looked at and just cost or location or reasonability of it. And just to remind folks that committee met over 2,500 combined hours to get to that work. So it's a lot of work, but it came out with pretty good ideas.
And as far as the finance and budget comments, which I appreciate, I'm not going to defend it and sit there and go, oh, we're so fiscally responsible. We are as fiscally responsible as, obviously, I would like to believe, if I'm believing the numbers Brad had brought to us all those years and now Abe. I think we're doing the best we can with not only the constraints we have and the needs that we have, but the feedback that we get. And that doesn't mean that we can't re-examine it for the budget next year. Again, if some community member has an idea of where they think we have fat to trim, that's open for public inspection. Please,
it's transparent. It's published.
Bring me your ideas. And I'm not saying we don't have fat to trim. I would love to go line by line, each year like we do, and make sure that we're not overspending and that we can transfer funds from somewhere it's not being utilized to somewhere it needs to be utilized. And of course, we will keep trucking away at that. I just think if somebody does know particularly of a certain fund that's being, where money's sitting there that we're not utilizing, please bring it forward.
Like the closet space that is there for students.
Right. And we do internally ask our staff regularly, do you have ideas, thoughts all year long, where the dollars are at and how school budgets are used and what their needs are and how we can prioritize. So.
And like I said, I'm sure every organization, profit or not profit, has fat to trim. I'm sure that we have it somewhere, but it's a matter of accumulating enough to come up with $42 million. That's not going to happen out of a $55 million budget.
And the board has done that with the work with administration over the last couple of years to increase the funding to curriculum and increase funding in tech over a couple of years. So those are just some examples where we've tried to accumulate and realign.
So is there anything else you would like to share regarding the Hawthorn 73 educational EFMP referendum? Regarding the EFMP, awareness and communication, along with finances and a different or a better solution were the major comments. I hope after this presentation you can see why the solution was chosen by the board and the team. Any additional comments? Actually, there were a lot that had nothing to do with the EFMP, so I'm sorry, but that you're going to have to come to me personally for. Do you have any... This slide had to do most with the awareness and communication. And I like to go with it. Some of it was answer questions, take to Facebook to give data, use Facebook more, meet with the board members at community events. We had the community events. Visually appealing flyers. I personally put the flyers out in your mailboxes. Open forums, and we had them. Involve parents and PTO to disperse ideas. We can't do them. They have to do that. Information through newspaper. We did. Provide ample notice. Provide food and babysitting. We provided babysitting. I don't think we provided food. Webinars. I think Dave had it on YouTube. Take people on building tours. You have to ask for it. I can't force you into a building. Door-to-door mailings. We did that. We have received feedback on how to increase our communication and awareness of. However, we would let that legally. And there's another thing. People go, you can go on and on of parents and explain things better. These were some of the topics that it came with. I'd like to let the community know that legally, we, the board and the administrators, can only provide factual information. We cannot campaign for the referendum. So putting up signs for voting has to be done by the community members. We did do many of the suggested idea, which was provide babysitting, had town halls. We met in small groups. We had coffees. We mailed flyers. We did door hangers. We had FAQ on our website. We got the word out through Facebook. We broadcast our meetings. But we will strive to do better at communicating our future decisions and plans. We have since hired Leslie. So she's our communications director who's going to help us get the information out in various formats and in more attractive flyers, if that's what people wanted. But we will definitely do it. A lot of the thing is there, but some of the things, issues that weren't addressed, but we want to address are. We didn't ask for more than we needed. We can explain the numbers, and we live here. Believe me, we all feel the same tax burden as you, and all our kids also go to the same schools. We understand that it felt rushed after the December date when the plan was approved in Jan, when we had to draft the referendum with 2 weeks of winter break in the middle. After that, it was April 4th. The board realized that it might be rushed, and we did discuss this at meetings, but we wanted to give it our best. We are confident in our plan numbers. We might not have reached everyone, but the need is there. The time between passing the referendum and getting a building ready to move in will be 2 years, and that would have been the first building. So delaying the referendum meant that our kids suffered a bit more, and we gave the referendum our best effort. We will revisit our plans after the feedback we have received and try to solve all the issues at hand. The world language expansion. We have approved the expansion of dual language in middle schools and are currently working on staffing and curriculum. We would definitely like to offer more languages for exploration, but right now adding more classes and scheduling with the space constraints we already have is a tough situation. Better communication and presentation. Since the referendum, we have hired Leslie. We have consulted with link strategies, and we will strive to do better to get our message across. As we have mentioned a lot of the times today and always do, please email us, set up an appointment to meet us, and get the information from us. We are very transparent with our books and decisions. The administrative team and the board members are here for the community. Curriculum. There's a perception that the curriculum is inconsistent. Our curriculum must be based on the standards that are mandated by our nation and state. Our teachers work in teams to organize the standards into units of instruction. All teachers in each grade and course agree on and are consistent with outcomes and summative assessments. Outcomes is what we want all the students to know, understand, and be able to do at the end of each unit. Summative assessments is how we will measure each student on whether they've mastered the outcomes of each unit. Instruction in each classroom is personalized to meet the needs of the students and their varied abilities. The teachers are given the flexibility to plan instruction according to their students' needs and their own strengths. So the delivery and formative assessments look different in different classrooms. Depending on the availability of resource materials, the timing of units learned might be different in different classrooms and in different schools. Extracurricular opportunities are different in different schools based on the theme a particular school might be following, the teacher's interest, or the number of people volunteering to run an event. Field days might also look different depending on availability of locations, educational experience the teachers might feel they want their students to have. So the curriculum is the same. The difference you see is the delivery and the instructional freedom which we afford our teachers to have. Data is numbers. They are facts. We report these numbers to various state and federal agencies. We have oversight on our grants. We have the ROE, we have the ISB, and some other acronyms that look over all our curriculums and workings.
Acronyms. We just have lots of acronyms.
There are lots of acronyms. The numbers are facts. We can present them in different ways. And like I said, we are willing to sit down and go over them with you. But these are numbers. The enrollment numbers, you can count the numbers coming in and registered. Demographic projections, building design, construction costs were all estimated by individuals or firms that are experts in them. We didn't go into their wheelhouse. We hired the most competent people we could and used their expertise to guide us with solutions. We aren't playing darts or pulling numbers out of a spin machine. Trusting us, we will work to earn your trust. Give us the benefit of doubt. We, the board members, live near you. Our kids go to school with yours. We pay the same taxes. And for all that we hear about us, we are volunteers who put in a lot of time and effort. The administration, the same as the teachers, is here for the students. Maybe you didn't like what was said or a decision that was made, but please be cognizant of the fact that they are here for the students and work really hard through lots of ups and downs for your students' success. Please check the facts and information for yourself. We have all played the game of telephone and sometimes wrong stuff on social media just creeps in. We, the board and the administration, work really hard and will work harder to get the information to you and communicate with you and earn your trust and respect. Thank you. Anything more?
Well done.
First of all, thank you so much for putting that together. I mean, wow, like holy moly. So I think the only thing I would add or, just make a little comment on is, I hope the community doesn't think that we just defended ourselves without hearing them. Yes, there are some things to defend ourselves for, but I do want them to know, like, they have been heard, and tonight's not the end of the conversation. There's going to be more discussion moving forward, and these things will still lead to, probably different input, maybe some slight tweaks, and, we'll see what happens. But I don't want people to think, well, that's the end of the discussion on STEM, or that's the end of the discussion on finance and budget. Like, it's all going to be considered. Yes, the budget's done for this year, but there's always next year, and everything will be looked at again. I really, 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 really feel like I'm always begging people to give feedback. Facebook is not feedback. It's awesome. It gives me a little peek into what people are really thinking and keeps my, finger on the pulse of the community. But that is not feedback that we can do anything with. And I don't know if people really understand that. So I think when people are saying better communication, I think they're not just referring to the EFMP. I think they kind of think that's a problem in general, but communication is a two-way street. Yes, we can send out the links like Leslie does of here's the agenda for the upcoming meeting, but it's also on the community to go and look at that and then decide. And, even looking at some of the articles that get published from the Tribune or the Daily Herald and the comments that follow, most of those questions have already been asked and answered. You really have to go. And I know it's super boring to sit and watch these meetings, but you can read the minutes. That's a lot faster. Or you could just, if you don't want to participate in that way, then part of it is just, you gotta take it for what it's worth if you don't want to participate. So not everybody has the time and the ability, and not everybody speaks the language. And I think all of that is important to consider. But I think there's a lot that can be done when things are emailed or a public comment is made. And I think there's almost nothing that can be done from complaints on Facebook, unfortunately. It would be nice, but it would be never ending. So I would hope people would appreciate that and use these surveys and use the avenues that we've made available. We provide these things like coffee talks and whatever, and literally one person will show up, despite making it at various times of the day in various locations. Everybody's busy. I get that. But, if you don't want to show up, cool. I'm happy to show up anyway and make myself available. But then please don't say that we haven't made ourselves available. That would be my only ask. Other than that, more than happy to hear the feedback, more than happy to consider it moving forward. And I thank the 500 and some odd people that took the time to answer that.
Jason?
Thank you. Very good. Hope people hear this, see this.
Yes, thank you everyone for responding and adding your comments. We appreciate it. The one thing I just wanted to add, I know there was a lot of responses that would like to see the early childhood pre-K brought back to the district. As much as we would, love to have them back here, we, clearly don't have the space, as Sonali said. But the one advantage of having the early childhood pre-K at Lincoln is that we're able to share services. So there is some cost savings there for us. So again, we'd love to have them here, but we're not, we are in a good situation, and it's I went on a tour. It's a wonderful location, and we don't have any complaints. Families that are in the program seem to be really happy. So.
And we will evaluate it. Everything is up for evaluation. Like the budget is up for evaluation every year. Everything is up for evaluation as we get along to that,
Right.
And I'm sure every principal evaluates the programs that they have in their school, depending on, what is working, what is not working, whether it's a field trip that was not effective. So everything gets evaluated. It's not just because we've done it, we keep doing the same thing. It's evaluated, and if it's effective, it's there. If it's not, but like all of us are saying, if you have an idea you think we as a community and a school could benefit from, please come and tell us in any sort and form you want. We'll meet, you can email us, you can call us. Our numbers are listed on the directory. The administrative team is here for a long time. Anyway, you want us to be heard. And we definitely do consider it.
We can't address what we don't know or haven't heard. So.
And the Lincoln thing, I did hear from the comments that I think a lot of the people wanted it back here so that there was, now that the kindergarten center is, moving forward, I know a lot of people want to say, we're saying that they would only want one transition for those kids. That now, if we don't bring it back, they're going to transition to a new school in kindergarten, a new school in first grade. I understand that. I appreciate that. Again, still open to hearing more feedback about our prioritization, but we do have to prioritize not only the social emotional part of that with the transition, but the cost associated with bringing them back here, the space constraints, the benefits of sharing resources versus doing them all independently. All of it's a cost-benefit analysis. And if you think our priorities are out of whack, please come sit down with us, come talk to us, make a public comment. I don't mind hearing criticism. That doesn't bother me. I just would like to hear it before the decisions are made instead of after, preferably. Yes. That'd be awesome.
To have a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second. Motion by Robin, seconded by Jason. Any comments? We are adjourned.
Oh, did you want to say all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.